All right, so you're getting ready for a sign language teacher interview. That's awesome. We're diving deep into RoleCatcher's guides to give you the tools you need to just nail it. So consider this deep dive your personal prep session using the career guide, the interview guide, and some insider info about the RoleCatcher platform.
It's really interesting because this job can really take you in so many different directions. You could find yourself working with students of all ages and all backgrounds and different learning styles, so adaptability is really key.
Yeah, the career guide actually uses the term non-age specific a lot, which I think really highlights that variety you can expect. So before we jump into interview questions, let's kind of paint a picture of what a sign language teacher actually does.
Sure, yeah. So it goes beyond just teaching signs. You're crafting engaging lessons. You're understanding how each student learns best. And you're giving them the tools to communicate effectively in a whole new language. Plus, with technology playing an increasingly important role, you'll want to show that you're comfortable incorporating those tools as well.
That makes sense. Speaking of showcasing your skills, let's tackle some of those interview questions that you might encounter. RoleCatcher's interview guide has 9 sample questions, and we'll use those as a springboard for our discussion.
Now remember, these are just examples to get a thinking. The interviewer might phrase things a little differently or throw in some curveball follow-up questions just to see how you think on your feet. So that's why being prepared is so important.
Totally. Okay, question number 1. What motivated you to become a sign language teacher? I mean, this one seems pretty straightforward, but how can someone make their answer really stand out?
Yeah, well, the interviewer is looking for genuine passion here and a compelling story. So what was that specific spark that ignited your interest in sign language? Maybe it was a personal experience, a desire to work with a certain group of people, or, something else entirely. Weaving in a story or a personal anecdote can make your response way more memorable.
Oh, so instead of just saying, I love languages, you could talk about a time you witnessed the power of sign language firsthand.
Exactly. Now be ready for those potential follow-up questions too. They might ask about your long-term goals in the field or what challenges you anticipate facing.
Okay, great advice. On to question number 2. How do you assess the needs of your students and create lesson plans that meet their individual needs? This one feels pretty central to the whole teaching process, right?
Absolutely. This question is all about showing that you understand the importance of differentiated instruction and creating a learner-centered environment in the classroom. So think about the specific strategies that you've used in the past, like pre-assessments to gauge students' existing knowledge, careful observation of their learning styles, or even just open conversations with them about what works best.
So you're not just describing the tools, but you're connecting them to how you actually design those customized lesson plans. Did you do things differently for students who are visual learners versus kinesthetic learners, for example?
Right, and be prepared to elaborate on those approaches with specific examples. What did that differentiation look like in practice? They might ask about how you adapt for students with diverse learning styles. Or, those who fall into different age groups.
This feels like a good time to mention how RoleCatcher can actually help tailor your answers to specific job roles. Their AI is pretty impressive.
It really is. You can put the job description in,
Okay.
and the AI will analyze it and give you feedback on how well your answers align with what the employer is looking for.
Well, it's like having a personal interview coach, right in your pocket.
Exactly.
Okay, back to the interview questions. Question number 3. How do you incorporate technology into your teaching approach? This one is especially important given how much technology is being used in education these days.
For sure, yeah. Be ready to discuss the specific tools and platforms you've used, and more importantly, how they've actually enhanced your teaching. Did you use video conferencing to connect with students in remote areas? Or maybe you created interactive games or quizzes to reinforce vocabulary?
So it's not just about listing the tech, but it's about showing how you've thoughtfully integrated it.
Right, this is your chance to showcase your tech savviness and your passion for integrating new tools into your teaching, sharing your experience with a new app designed for deaf students or an online platform for creating accessible learning materials. I think that can make a big impact.
Shows that you're going above and beyond to stay ahead of the curve. But what about access? They might ask how do you ensure that the technology is accessible to all students, including those with disabilities?
That's an excellent point, yeah. And something you should definitely be prepared to discuss. Inclusivity and accessibility are crucial considerations.
Okay, question number 4. How do you create a positive and inclusive classroom environment for deaf and hard of hearing students? So This goes beyond just like logistics and gets into the heart of your teaching philosophy.
Absolutely. The interviewer is trying to gauge your understanding of the unique challenges and needs of these students and how you create a space where they feel safe and respected and empowered to learn and grow.
So what are some concrete things you can highlight?
Well, you could think about things like using visual aids and clear communication strategies, incorporating elements of deaf culture into your teaching, and creating a welcoming atmosphere that encourages participation and collaboration from every student. Maybe you have like a specific system for ensuring everyone has a chance to contribute, even if they're not fluent in sign language yet.
And of course, cultural sensitivity is key here. Sign language isn't just a set of hand gestures. It's a rich language with its own grammar and nuances and cultural significance.
Yeah, a possible follow-up here could be, how do you address instances of autism or discrimination in the classroom? Showing that you're prepared to advocate for your students and create a truly inclusive environment is so important.
Okay, on to question number 5. How do you stay current with the latest developments in sign language teaching and research? This one gets at your dedication to continuous learning and staying at the forefront of your field.
Yeah, it does. So be ready to mention like specific journals you read, conferences you attend, or professional development opportunities you've pursued. Have you attended workshops on new teaching methodologies? Or have you read research articles on the cognitive benefits of bilingualism?
And don't just list things off. Show how you've actually implemented those new ideas in your teaching. Did you learn about a new assessment tool? Or maybe you discovered a new resource that made your lessons more culturally relevant.
Exactly. Show them that you're not just passively consuming information, but actively applying it to enhance your skills and benefit your students.
Okay, question number 6. How do you handle challenging or disruptive behavior in the classroom? This one can feel a bit tricky, right?
It can be, but it's about showing that you can maintain a positive learning environment for everyone while still addressing those, tricky situations with compassion and professionalism.
So how do you walk that line between being firm but also understanding?
Well, you can start by explaining your belief and setting clear expectations and boundaries right from the start. Talk about your classroom management strategies and how you utilize positive reinforcement to encourage good behavior. Do you have a system for giving students nonverbal cues when their behavior needs redirection? Or maybe a reward system for students who consistently follow the rules?
Those are great examples.
Yeah.
But what about like those more serious situations?
Be prepared to discuss those as well. How do you approach escalating problems to administrators? And how do you involve parents or guardians in the process? But remember, they're also assessing your ability to de-escalate situations and build positive relationships. Do you have a strategy for taking a student aside for a one-on-one conversation to understand what's driving the behavior?
That's a really great point. Being able to share a real-life example of a time that you successfully navigated a challenging situation, I think that can make your answer really resonate.
Absolutely. They might even ask you directly. Can you give me a specific example of a time you had to deal with disruptive behavior and how you handle it?
Okay, moving on to question number 7. How do you collaborate with other educators and professionals to support the needs of deaf and hard of hearing students?
Yeah.
This is all about teamwork and communication.
Exactly. This question is designed to see if you understand the value of collaboration and working as part of a team to support your students. So think about all the different professionals you might interact with: speech therapists, audiologists, special education teachers, counselors, and even parents or guardians.
So how do you approach building those relationships and ensuring that everyone is on the same page?
Be specific. Talk about how you establish regular communication, share progress reports, and work together to brainstorm strategies and solutions. Have you ever co-taught a lesson with a special education teacher? Or worked with a speech therapist to develop individualized learning plans for certain students?
Those are great examples of like formal collaboration. But what about those more informal interactions?
Those are important too. Maybe you have a system for checking in with other teachers in the hallway, to touch base on any concerns, or even just to offer support. Those little interactions can make a big difference.
It's all about building that strong network of support. Now, they might ask, how do you navigate situations where you and another professional have differing opinions about a student's needs?
Yeah,
That can be a tricky one.
it can be. But it comes down to respectful communication and advocating for what you believe is best for the student, while remaining open to hearing other perspectives.
Okay, on to question number 8. How do you incorporate cultural and linguistic diversity into your teaching approach? This one's incredibly important in today's world.
It is. They want to see that you understand the importance of creating a culturally responsive classroom that celebrates the diverse backgrounds and experiences of your students.
So how do you actually put that into practice?
Take a look at your curriculum and your teaching materials. Are they representing diverse cultures and perspectives? Do you incorporate different sign language dialects into your lessons? Are you creating opportunities for students to share their own cultural experiences with each other?
So it's about going beyond the surface level
Yeah,
and really weaving those diverse perspectives throughout your teaching.
exactly. And remember, it's not just about the content. It's also about the way you interact with your students. Do you create a space where they feel comfortable expressing themselves authentically? And are you respectful of their cultural norms and communication styles?
Those are great points. They might even follow up with, can you give an example of a time you adapted your teaching to meet the needs of a student from a different cultural background? Being able to share a concrete example, I think, can really demonstrate your commitment to inclusivity.
It can. Now let's move on to the final question from RoleCatcher's interview guide. How do you measure student progress and evaluate the effectiveness of your teaching approach? This one is all about assessment and reflecting on your methods.
So it's about showing that you're not just going through the motions, but that you're actively thinking about how your students are learning
Yeah,
and how you can improve as an educator.
exactly. So talk about the different types of assessments that you use. Formative, summative, formal, and informal. Do you use rubrics to provide clear expectations? And do you offer students opportunities for self-assessment?
Those are great examples. But it's not just about those formal assessments, right? Are you also paying attention to those more qualitative measures of progress? Are your students actively participating in discussions? Are their communication skills improving?
It's about seeing the whole picture. Now, a likely follow-up question here is, how do you use assessment data to inform your instruction? They want to see that you're a reflective practitioner who's constantly looking for ways to improve. Maybe you discovered that a certain teaching strategy wasn't working for a particular group of students, so you adjusted your approach based on their needs.
Being able to show that you're adaptable and willing to learn from your experiences is key.
It really is. And speaking of learning and adapting, I think it's a great time to circle back to RoleCatcher's AI features. They can be incredibly helpful for prepping for these types of questions.
Yeah, we touched on it earlier. But let's dive into those features a bit more. I love how the AI can analyze the job description and provide targeted feedback on your answers.
It's true. You can practice answering common interview questions and get specific suggestions on how to make your responses even stronger, all tailored to the role that you're applying for.
It really is like having a personal coach guiding you through the process.
And don't forget about the video practice feature. You can record yourself answering questions and get AI-powered feedback on your body language, your tone of voice, and your overall delivery.
That's so valuable.
Yeah.
Especially for those who might feel nervous about interviewing. It's a great way to build confidence and practice those all-important nonverbal cues.
Exactly. And remember, RoleCatcher offers these features even in their free version, which is pretty amazing.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground today, from understanding the role of a sign language teacher to tackling some of those tough interview questions. But before we wrap up, I want to shift gears a bit and talk about your career journey beyond the interview. What can you expect as you move forward in this field?
That's a great question. One of the exciting things about this field is that it's always evolving. There are constantly new developments in sign language teaching and research, and there are so many different paths that you can take.
Yeah, the career guide outlines a few different career stages, from entry-level positions all the way up to more advanced roles, which can give you a sense of the possibilities. So what are some things that you can do to keep growing and learning as you progress in your career?
Well, continuous learning is key. The career guide mentions several great resources for staying up to date on the latest research and trends in the field, like joining professional organizations, attending workshops and conferences, and reading relevant journals.
And networking is incredibly important in any field, but especially in education. Connecting with other sign language teachers and professionals in the deaf community can provide you with invaluable support and mentorship, and opportunities for collaboration.
That's so true. Building those connections can open up so many doors. And guess what? RoleCatcher has some fantastic networking features built right into their platform to help you connect with other professionals in your field.
It's like having a built-in support system right at your fingertips.
Exactly. And speaking of building your skills and credentials, Don't forget about the power of certifications. The career guide mentions a few that might be relevant to you, depending on your interests and career goals.
Yeah, they mentioned the American Sign Language Teacher Association certification, which is a well-respected credential in the field.
They also mention the TESOL certification, which is great if you're interested in working with English language learners. And if you're passionate about working with students who have additional needs, a special education certification might be a good path to consider.
It's really about tailoring your professional development to match your passions and your long-term goals.
Exactly. And as you embark on this journey, remember that you have the incredible opportunity to make a real difference in people's lives. You're empowering individuals to communicate and connect and access a whole world of opportunities.
That's such a powerful reminder. As you head into that interview, think about what truly excites you about teaching sign language. Let that passion and enthusiasm shine through in your answers. And don't be afraid to share your unique experiences and insights.
You've got this. We're confident that you'll do great. And remember, RoleCatcher is a fantastic resource to help you along the way.
We'll be back in a moment to wrap up this deep dive with some final thoughts and advice. Stay tuned.
So we talked about what it takes to be a sign language teacher, like how to show off your skills in an interview. But let's zoom out for a sec. The career guide actually gives a sneak peek at some career paths you could try.
Oh, that's a good point. It's helpful to see where this job could actually lead you. What kind of examples do they have?
Well, they start with entry-level roles, like an assistant sign language teacher. You might work with a teacher with more experience and take on more responsibilities over time.
Okay, so at the beginning, you're building skills and getting experience. What's next?
Then you could become a lead sign language teacher. You would design and teach your own lessons, manage a classroom, maybe even mentor other teachers.
That sounds like a good way to get better at leading and make a difference for students.
For sure. And if you love making curriculums, you could be a sign language curriculum specialist. You would design curriculum for a whole school district or even a bigger organization.
Wow, there are so many possibilities.
Yeah.
Are there any jobs that focus more on research or special areas of sign language teaching?
Definitely. You could be a sign language researcher. You would add to what we know about learning sign language, teaching methods, and the linguistics of sign language.
That sounds so interesting. Imagine making those discoveries and changing the field.
It's pretty cool, right? And if you like working with certain types of people, you could focus on teaching sign language to deaf kids with other needs, or working with adults at work, or even teaching sign language to hearing people.
It seems like you can really focus on what you love and make a big difference. Thinking about all these jobs makes me see how important it is to always be learning and developing professionally.
You got it. The career guide lists some awesome resources to keep learning. They talk about joining groups like the American Sign Language Teachers Association, going to conferences and workshops and reading journals and stuff.
Those are all good ways to stay current. But what about networking? We mentioned it before, but how important is networking for a sign language teacher, especially when they're thinking about different career paths?
Networking is super important. It's how you meet other people in the field, share what works, and learn from each other. You never know what will happen when you meet new people. You could find a mentor, find a new job, or even work together on a research project.
And don't forget, RoleCatcher has features for networking too, so you can meet other people and grow your network.
That's right. Their platform makes it easy to find people with the same interests and goals as you.
Okay, so we've looked at career paths and talked about learning and networking. What about certifications? Are there any specific certifications that are really good to have or that employers look for?
We mentioned a few before, but they're worth talking about again. The ASLTA certification is respected in the field. It shows you care about professional standards and best practices.
It seems like that one would look good on a resume, especially for leadership roles or curriculum jobs we talked about.
Totally. And the TESOL certification is great if you want to work with people learning English.
That makes sense because a lot of deaf people are also learning English.
Right. And if you want to work with students who have other needs, a special education certification is helpful.
It sounds like there's a certification for almost every area.
There is. You just have to research the options and pick what's best for your goals.
Okay, so we talked about the practical stuff about being a sign language teacher, the interview, and even different jobs you could have. But before we finish up, I want to talk about something deeper. What are the best parts of this career? What makes it so special?
That's a great question. I think the best part is how much you can change students' lives. You're not just teaching them words, you're helping them talk to people, connect, and do so many things.
It must feel amazing to see your students get more confident, make friends, and do what they want, using sign language.
It really does. It's so inspiring to see them grow and not let communication stop them. And besides helping individual students, you're making society more inclusive and accessible.
That's so important. By promoting sign language in deaf culture, you're making a world where everyone can talk to each other.
It's so cool to be part of that. And I have to mention how beautiful sign language is. It's so expressive and detailed. It's a joy to teach and learn.
You can really tell how much you love it. It's more than just a job. It's something you're meant to do.
I think so. It's a career where you need to be dedicated, care about people, and love language and communication. But it's so rewarding.
That's a great thing to remember as we finish up this deep dive. If you're thinking about being a sign language teacher, remember you can really change the world. And RoleCatcher can help you with resources and support, so you can do well in your interview, get your dream job, and start a really fulfilling career.
We'll be cheering for you the whole way.
We'll be right back with some final thoughts and encouragement. Stay tuned. We're back. We talked about what it means to be a sign language teacher, how to answer interview questions, and even what jobs you could have.
And how important it is to keep learning, networking, and getting certifications to build a great career.
It's been a lot. But as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to go back to something we mentioned before: passion.
Yeah, passion is what keeps us going, especially in a field as important as this one.
Exactly. When you're getting ready for your interview, think about why you wanted to do this in the first place. What makes you excited about teaching sign language? Is it the language itself, the impact you can have on your students, or maybe the chance to help make things more inclusive and accessible?
Let that passion show when you answer questions. Share your experiences, your thoughts, and how excited you are about this work.
Show them you don't just want any job, you want this job because it means something to you.
Exactly. And remember, the interview goes both ways. You can learn about the school or organization and see if it's a good fit for you too.
That's a good point. Ask them questions about their teaching style, how they include everyone, and what resources they have for teachers.
Being curious and interested will make a good impression and help you decide if it's the right place for you.
So as you get ready for your interview, remember everything we talked about. Be ready to answer tough questions, show your passion, and talk about your skills and experiences. And of course, use the great resources from RoleCatcher. Their AI feedback, video practice, and career guidance can really help you prepare.
You're going to do great. We know you'll impress them with what you know, your excitement, and your dedication to helping deaf and hard-of-hearing students.
Go ace that interview. We're cheering for you. And remember, this is just the start of a great journey.
A journey filled with purpose, connection, and the power of communication.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into sign language teaching. We'll be back soon with more career insights and expert advice to help you succeed. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep following your dreams.